big, big genre for me. I love documentaries, especially historical ones about wars.
Especially about religion.
And then religion as well. So I watched Jesus Camp 2 today, which is about kids in these Jesus camps and how they're indoctrinated and brainwashed. So anyway,
it is pretty fucked up when you think about that, Del. When you think about religion and kids, because you think about it, most kids never get to choose that.
And they're so impressionable.
Like, yeah, because if you think most parents selfishly and egotistically choose that for the kid. Like, why don't you give the kid the freedom to wait and decide?
Right, and Seth Andrews talks about it.
It's a pretty big deal right there.
One of my biggest atheist guys I listen to. He talks about it that, you see a picture of a 7-year-old who's holding the Bible, and if you ask her if that Bible is true, she would say yes, even though she knows nothing or can comprehend anything about what is actually being said in that book.
That's heavy, man.
So
when you think about the impact that has on our society as a whole, is the manipulation of the youth to believe in religion.
Well, and I've seen it through my mom and dad's churches.
So have I. It's crazy.
They're taking kids who are 7, 8 years old and trying to teach them how to get the Holy Ghost and speak in tongues.
When I have kids, I'm never going to force them to be anything. I'm going to let them decide. I might give them a bunch of options and might steer them.
Guidance.
But I'm not going to tell them they have to. You have to believe in Christianity.
You're a parent. Guidance is going to be there. But yeah, let them explore.
Exactly. All right, sorry. I just think that's a great point you touched on.
Yeah, let them learn who they are. So anyway, I'm watching this documentary on Scientology. And, of course, the minute you hear the word Scientology, what do you think of?
Me, I think cult, I think bullshit, and I think Tom Cruise.
There it is. I was waiting for it. I was waiting for the big Tom Cruise, the TC. Yeah, so Tom Cruise is like their leading spokesperson. The person who's actually in charge of Scientology is a guy by the name of Makevich.
Whoever did that, Makevich, I think like you said, I think he was using Tom Cruise to brand it.
Right. Well, actually, L. Ron Hubbard is the one that got that idea started.
L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, he's the one who created Scientology. He's a science fiction.
Thanks for being with us, folks.
Creator. He went after guys like Jimmy Stewart, Cary Grant, Danny Kaye. People like that. He
specifically targeted them.
He specifically went after Hollywood because he felt that with big names, it would bring in the people.
Which makes sense, really. It sounds like good branding.
Right, if the theories that they were teaching
exactly.
But, so Makevich, when L. Ron Hubbard died, Makevich took over, and him and Tom Cruise are kind of the 1-2 punch for spreading what Scientology is. So throughout this documentary, it was amazing. They were showing clips of different meetings that they have, and Tom Cruise, getting this award, this like gold medal thing around his neck from Makevich for his efforts and work with the Church of Scientology. And so I decided, I talk about all these other religions. I talk about Baptists. I talk about Catholics, Pentecostal. The typical, atypical religious faiths, right? The normal Bible-thumping churches. Now I thought, you know what, I could go on with that forever, but I'm curious about some of the more extreme ones, like Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, and then definitely Scientology. Scientology is probably the most out there when it comes to them being able to say that they're a religious organization. So totally. I decided to do some work and look into it today. And like I said, I'm going to do a little bit more into it so I can get into even more detail. Today I'm just going to scratch the surface, a little 30, 40-minute video podcast. So theological doctrine that they have. Scientology does not preach or impose a particular idea of God to their followers. Rather, people are expected to discover the truth through their own observations and awareness in their advances that way.
Strange.
So, rather, as one's level of spiritual awareness increases through participation in Scientology, auditing, and training, one attains his own certainty of every dynamic. So they do a thing that's called auditing. and you're hooked up to this electrical machine that has an slight electrical current going through, and by different chemical reactions in the body causes the arrow on the machine to go in certain ways.
They call it auditing? A-U-D-I-T?
They do. And so by doing this, what it does is whatever they look at it as whatever disturbance that is
In you.
at that moment, you're trying to clear that disturbance.
It kind of sounds like electric shock therapy.
Without being shocked, right? But so they're talking about reactive mind, traumatic memories, and auditing. Pretty much what they're wanting to do is through this way of auditing yourself, you are able, it's called Dianetics. So L. Ron Hubbard wrote the book Dianetics.
Dianetics.
It's a best-selling book. And Dianetic auditing is one way by which a Scientologist may progress toward a clear state of mind. Winning gradual freedom from the reactive mind's engrams and acquiring certainty of his or her reality as a thetan is what it's called. So it's very new agey. Very new agey.
Here's what's interesting.
Kind of mystical.
I just want to interject. Basically, nowadays, you could create anything, any kind of fictional story. I mean, you could draft it, and we could come up with a name, and we could call it a religion.
Correct.
That's what this sounds like.
You know, kind of Family Guy, they made fun of it. They made, Peter Griffin made the church of the, what's his name from Happy Guys, the Fonz.
It's just bizarre.
Church of the Fonz.
It's like the primary example of it. It's just like, wow, it's just bizarre to me when you start to think about not only all the old ones, Del, but then you hear this, and it's just like, wow.
Right.
So basically, me and Del could walk to the edge of the Lake Superior, and we could come up with this spiritual moment. Correct. And start to lay claim to it that had a spiritual experience, and we spoke with a godlike being or creature, and now we're gonna draft a book, Del, and we're gonna start a religion.
Well, I told you that about Mormonism. That Smith, the creator of Mormonism, found rocks in a tablet out in the woods. He said, and the only way for him to transcribe it was to put it in this bag. That it would light up in the darkness of the bag, and he would translate it to somebody writing it. It was pretty much just him with his own little bullshit story, and then you find out more about him, which I'll go into a Mormonism episode eventually.
I just think it's a great point, Del.
But he was found out to be a fraud.
We should start auditing religion, folks. It's remarkable to me that so many people still believe in all these little stories that someone wrote.
So Scientology...
This is great stuff. This is great stuff, though, Del, because Scientology, to me, is a great example of all this.
Well, Scientology teaches that the e-meter, that's that machine, helps locate spiritual difficulties.
It's kind of like a blowjob, locate spiritual difficulties.
So it says that the e-meter provides an external material locus for the legitimacy of practice, the appearance of objectivity and empirical validity.
That's interesting. Can you read that again? Empirical. Oh, that's interesting. Because we talk a lot about at Wierman Media, we talk a lot about empirical models, and it says empirical validity.
Yes.
That makes some sense in some regards.
They also reject psychology and psychiatric help. So if you have a mental health disorder, like you could be schizophrenic, it is a disturbance in your field, not an actual mental illness. Tom Cruise got in a huge fight on when he was interviewed by a morning talk show.
When was this?
It was with Lauer,
Matt
Lauer, and Tom Cruise was like, "Do you know what these meds are doing to you?" And you don't know what's in them, and
I think
I don't need to take this medication because I can cure myself of this.
I do think that's an interesting perspective to have. I'm not saying I believe in it, but like some of these medications do fucking twist people up.
Oh yeah, but there's definitely people that need it.
100%.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to go into where we really get interesting.
All right, let's do it.
This is where I get excited. This is how L. Ron Hubbard created Scientology.
This is a great point. Everyone pay attention to this because created. Let's face it, every religion was created.
He created it. It was creation.
And every religion was. People like to think the Bible is like some holy thing. Let's face it, folks. It was written by a group of people to manipulate others to give them money. It was created. It's a fictional story. It is a fictional story.
So, Scientologists believe that there is a high space dictator by the name of Xenu.
Oh my goodness.
Are you ready for this?
Xenu, folks.
So Xenu was
We're going to start having a show called Xenu.
Xenu was, according to Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard, the dictator of the Galactic Confederacy who brought millions of his people to Earth in a DC-8-like spacecraft 75 million years ago, stacked them around volcanoes, and killed them with hydrogen bombs.
Well, folks, Xenu.
Yeah.
To me,
how he knows they were DC-8-like spacecraft, I have no idea. Where he got all this, in a vision or something?
To me, it just sounds so much like the ultimate disproving of religion, right? Because it's like the ultimate example of it. That's the most extreme in modern day, where it's like it gives a great example of why religion should be questioned so much.
Well, you got to look at where it's.
I think it's a great.
You got to look at where it's coming from. L. Ron Hubbard is a science fiction author.
He's a science fiction author.
That's what he does for a living, people.
That's what he does.
He created a science fiction story and turned it into a religion.
And called it Scientology.
Correct.
So, that's why I think this is really cool. I think it's a great idea and topic to bring up because, like, to me, nothing shows a more fictional story than Scientology. That's something someone created to try and get people to follow and believe in them and follow and, like, give them something, either their attention, money, or whatever, or both. But, like, to me, it's the great example. And I'm a huge fan of the Book of Eli with Denzel because of it.
Yeah.
And to me, this gives a primary example of just this. Religion is powerful, folks. It's one of the most powerful tools ever. There's a reason we still believe in it to this day. Like, think about how old it... Like, there's very few things, Del, that have controlled humans for so long besides money and religion.
The power is in the money.
The power's in it, exactly.
Scientology, Mormons make so much money. It's ridiculous how much the Church of Mormon has and Scientology has.
So when you look at the correlation between the two most powerful stories ever sold to people, it's religion and money, and it's really interesting, and they both they go hand in hand, because if people are fearful, they'll give you money.
Right. To even join Scientology, you have to have
right.
$50K up front.
50 large, folks.
Just to get started.
What kind of fucking church or religion has a asterisk or a fucking prerequisite for income qualification?
Right?
What the fuck?
Okay, and they have different levels.
Excuse my language, but you have to qualify fiscally.
They have 8 levels. Tom Cruise is a level 7 in 2017.
It's like the ultimate... It's like a military mixed with religion, mixed with science, mixed with fucking bullshit. They have a ranking system.
So a level 8.
Tom Cruise is a level 7.
Okay, if you're going to get to a level 8.
What level are you, Dale?
A minus 200. Anything to get as far away from any levels as possible.
Fucking level 7 Tom Cruise. He's leveling up, ladies and gentlemen.
So to get to a level 7 for Tom Cruise, he spent anywhere between $500,000 to $2 million to get to that spot.
Well, you better give him a gold T-shirt or something.
Oh, they gave him a gold medal.
Oh, my God.
Because he's made the biggest impact in Scientology. So
it does make sense when you think about it. Everyone thinks about Scientology. Tom Cruise pretty much made it.
I mean, that's all you think about when you think Scientology. Now, it's not just them. I mean, if you've watched the show Mad Men, Elizabeth Moss, she plays Peggy Olson in Mad Men. She's a Scientologist. We're not even talking about Katie Holmes, who was married to Tom Cruise. Nicole Kidman, who left Scientology after she got divorced from Tom
But if you look at cult leaders, like, it's super interesting when you look at religion and cult. You brought up cult earlier, and you mentioned it's kind of culty.
Perfect tie-in with what I was about ready to say.
And if you think about it, in a way, religions are cults, right? And you could almost take any...
There's a brainwashing.
And you could take almost any cult idea. Me and Del, we're not going to, and we won't, but we could come up with the most bizarre idea. The most bizarre, irrational,
and I guarantee
crazy, and someone will buy it. Exactly, Del. That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
Is no matter how irrational, no matter how out of left field,
how passionate, no matter how much you believe it.
Exactly, it's how you tell the story, how powerful and authentic that story is. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most powerful tools ever is powerful, authentic, benign, fictional stories.
Again, back to the fictional stories.
Exactly. It's everything. It's everything. No matter how bad or how stupid it is, people can sell it and make you believe it. And it's just interesting to me that you brought that up, and it's a great way of talking about it. All the people, that believed in Scientology, and there's a long list. We could look at all the religions. I was going to look it up. I was going to Google it just now. I was just thinking how many religions there are. But what you lead into what you were going to talk about, though.
So you said about the cult leader.
Yeah.
So the person who's in charge now, his name is David McCavish. Okay, and I got to saw some of the video footage on him, and he's weird. But this is what the rumors are about him. But it's not just rumors. I mean, these are top people that are saying it about him. He's not the kind of guy you necessarily want to be alone around. He allegedly prides himself on having memorized the sexual irregularities.
Irregularities.
There we go. Of practically every staff member at one facility. He once reportedly dressed his dog up in a uniform and made staff members salute him. His favorite activity is apparently reading celebrity dossiers. This is possibly the only normal thing about him.
Is that normal?
Yeah. Former members also say he's insanely violent, which on this documentary they talk about it. According to extensive details that they have. Also, his wife has disappeared.
Oh, that's no big deal.
8 years ago, she disappeared. If she is alive, she's locked in a compound behind razor wire.
That's no big deal, folks. You know, you just get married and
you know
your
what
life
that compound
disappears.
is called? Twin Peaks. You can't make this shit up,
You
man.
can't make it up. So a quick injection here. 4,300 religions approximately in the world, folks. Nothing to me says bullshit more than I can't, like, what the fuck? 4,300 religions. I guarantee if you audited every single fucking religion, they're all going to contradict every other religion. To me, religion itself is the exact example of why I don't believe in it. They all can't, like Dell talks about all the time in the stories of, like, theology. Mm-hmm. They just, the stories in themselves contradict each other. And religion itself is the evil. It's the root of all evil. It divides people and causes war and division more than anything in the world. So right. I'm a huge, I just can't stand it.
Well, I forgot about John Travolta. He's also a Scientologist.
Oh my God, he is that guy? John Travolta's different, man.
Yeah, he's
different. One. He owns a plane, but he's also brilliant.
So different things that's weird. Like Katie Holmes has come out. She was married to Tom Cruise. She came out and taught, Dawson's Creek is the show she was on. She came out and talked about certain things that Tom Cruise would make her do. And one of the rules
you mentioned this.
That they had is that if you are pregnant with a child and you are going through childbirth, you have it at home, first off.
You have it at home.
You have it at home. 2, you are not able to make a sound. Throughout all the pain, you cannot scream, you cannot, because it could be disturbing and traumatic to the child. And they're all about trying to stop trauma, I guess. So yeah, that's a big one. She talks about it, that it's just crazy. Talk about Leah Remini. She's from King of Queens, plays the wife on King of Queens. He has a huge documentary, like I said, on Netflix or Hulu, one of them. But she was in it from 10 years old, was in it to her early 30s, and then got out. They are very...
More love.
One of the rules is if you are part of Scientology and part of the group, you cannot have any contact with anybody, including family members, husbands, wives, even your kids, if they are not part of Scientology.
Sounds culty to me.
You're completely cut off. So she couldn't be around her family. She couldn't do any of that. Katie Holmes was upset about it as well because she couldn't be around her family because of it. And Tom Cruise, literally, from the rumors, was even intimidating to her about it. Now, I'm worried about myself.
Right.
This is where I'm going to go to kind of finish this off. This is kind of, like I said, just a reaching of the, scratching of the surface to dipping our toes in it for later on.
Dipping the toes.
People that go up against Scientology, that stand up against them, that talk about them publicly, that do podcasts, that do documentary, they start to get harassed by people and they start getting followed and tailed.
Well, this will be interesting.
This will be interesting. I'm curious if there's any Scientologists that live here in Duluth.
I assure you, you Scientologists do not want beef with... I'm just kidding.
Well, we have Scientology. We have the Scientology temple down in Minneapolis, down by,
by
the Walker Center.
I wasn't aware of that.
It's right there by the Walker Center in Minneapolis. I used to walk by it every day. It is there.
So we're a Scientology. We have Scientology practice.
This is a liberal state. Scientology is a very liberal religion. So I'm curious of what comments I'm going to get about this podcast. What if I get any emails, if I get
it'll be interesting.
Anyone showing up at work going, "You need to stop talking about that."
There's some big names that play in that field too. I mean, Scientology. You think about it. There's some of the biggest hitters in that field.
Exactly, and they do not like it when people say anything negative. They're very much intimidating, and if you see some of the looks, I've seen some of the videos of how they do this, and some of the looks on their faces, they look crazy.
The thing I find so interesting is how religion to me contradicts the simplicity of humanism. Like, if we just look at everything and make it as simple as possible, and we say love, we say compassion, we say kindness, we say empathy, and we say the golden rule, all right? Super simple, Del. We've talked about this before. How come so many religions have to complicate it? Like, this is what I think about when I think about connecting to other people, Del. I think about just connecting to others and having those basic principles I just said, living by the golden rule, treating people how I want to be treated, living through love, compassion, empathy, and kindness, and not bringing all this crazy religious doctrine. To me, doesn't religious doctrine almost confuse you?
Yeah, I mean,
like, why do we have to make it so complex?
And the thing is with all these doctrines, and even I felt this growing up as a kid, is with doctrine you're not supposed to question it. You're supposed to just have faith and believe it, and don't ask questions. You're overthinking it. Stop doing that.
Like, one of the things we just were talking about, Del, was the complexity. We were making a PowerPoint for our new business in our sales presentation we're going to be starting, and one of the things was the growth complex, and simple versus complex. And if you think about it, religion is so complex, and it really is basic, simple principles of love, compassion, empathy, kindness, and treating others how you want to be treated and living by the golden rule. But then they add in all this bullshit to try and, like, to me it seems like it's like a magic trick, Del, right? It's like look here, boom, and do something here.
Yeah, they distract you off over here while they got their hands in your pocket.
Exactly.
In your honey pot, in your cookie jar.
It's all about the money. Like, don't you love the Book of Eli?
That's a great movie, and
to me, it's one of the most underrated movies.
I had no clue he was fucking blind.
Neither did I the whole time.
Spoilers.
Well, I had a slight idea because of the fact that there's a few times I didn't know, but I had to.
But just the fight scenes.
Yeah, ridiculous.
I mean, and I get it. His
heightened senses.
Yeah, to be able to know that. But yeah, I had no clue. No, it's an underrated movie, actually.
So basically, I just am overly fascinated with it because during an apocalyptic time, it's so cool because the power of the Bible is going to be more powerful, right? Because people are so fearful and they're going to have less hope. And it really makes so much sense. And the last Bible on earth would have tons of power. Picture a time where everyone's like lost hope and lost direction. And I just loved the movie. I loved it. It was my favorite movie. To me, I didn't realize, until I watched that movie, I did not realize the power of religion in the Bible. That helped me, really, after watching that movie, see, like, oh, that makes sense.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. I want you to think about this and give me your thoughts on it. What would this world be like without religion? What would that represent?
I think it would be a lot easier to obtain unity as like, if you think about unity worldwide, right, and globally, I think it would be a lot easier with simple humanistic ideologies. Like, if you took away, like, what Del just said, I think if you remove religious doctrine, or if you let people overcome it and just start to see that we're all humans from different parts of the world and we all just want to live through empathy, compassion, kindness, and basically the golden rule, and come at each other with those basic principles. I just think that the religion is a way of dividing people. I really don't see religion. There's nearly no way, Del, where we can have all these religions and all these different subsets of religion in the middle and then throughout the world and then have cohesiveness.
Well, don't you think our whole value system would be more humanistic?
Yeah, because you start to look at everyone like we're humans. Like, we look at people from the Middle East like they're part. Right. Like, we don't have to look at Muslims and Christians. It's the most divisive barrier in the world.
Yeah.
I think it's the most powerful barrier that we could ever overcome is if we can overcome religion. It's to me,
I look back to the Christian Crusades, okay, where millions of people lost their lives back in those days with the Crusades.
terrible.
And it's like, oh, do you believe in our God? No, you don't. Stab, 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 stab.
It's the ultimate example.
I mean,
and if you think of all the wars
you
that have been
disagree
fought,
with me, I kill you.
think about all the wars that have been fought since then on religion.
So much blood has been spilled.
It's like the number one barrier to unity, hands down, to me, in my opinion. So I think it's great that you bring this stuff up.
Well,
and I think it's a
just,
great idea for us to think about this thing.
I'll just say my piece
So
on
the
this.
question, though, again, was what would
it look like? I mean, because I know for a fact I've finally given myself a label. I don't like giving myself labels usually, but I'm a secular humanist. Okay. I'm a believer in what we can do in the avenues that we have, whether it be through podcasting, through just life in general, the things in secular life that we have available to us to be able to be a humanistic person and be able to help others around us to be able to have a better way of life.
I personally think religion is the exact issue.
I personally look at that as saying that's a good way to live.
100%.
To have that way, that value system. That whole thing of God, where's your morals from? My morals are humanistic, which means I'm not going to do anything that goes against morals towards someone where I am abusing them, hurting them, doing something wrong to them, because I have morals inside of me without a God.
100%.
I know rape is wrong. I know murder is wrong. I know stealing is wrong. You cannot tell me that just because I don't believe in God that those morals are not there. I know it's in my reality, and you don't get to define that reality.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting topic. I think it's really cool to bring that up and have us start to audit it. And like what you said, the question, what would it look like a world without religion, right? Or what would...
I think it'd be a lot more peaceful.
It's just so interesting to me because after diving into all these concepts I talk about and think about, it's one of the number one barriers. It's really interesting.
Good question for us to think about. I challenge that out to our podcast friends that are watching and listening to us right now, and who are going to watch and listen to us, to look at that and really try to answer the question for yourself of what that could look like for you.
And we're moving closer and closer to less people believing in religion.
Well,
right?
the numbers
I mean, I heard you
down.
mention that. We're having more atheists than ever, right?
Yeah. Right now, the biggest movement in this country is the movement of atheism. And the thing is it's okay. It's all right to be an atheist. It used to be that you were, looked at as evil by saying you were an atheist, that you were sacrificing babies or something, I am an atheist. It's okay that I'm an atheist. And it's okay for me to stand up and say my beliefs on it. Why does the Christian think that they have more rights to sit there and tell me what their beliefs are, but I don't have the right to say what my beliefs are?
Exactly. It goes both ways.
It goes both ways. It's a two-way highway here. You can't just have one without the other. So
I think that's really cool, man. I think it's really cool that you're bringing it all up and talking about it. And I think it is true that you just have, just as much as someone has the right to believe in anything, you have the right to believe in nothing. But not, that's not necessarily the words, but that's what I mean.
Well, the thing is,
just as much as someone chooses to believe in something, I can choose to believe in something else or nothing else. Like
right.
We can all choose to believe in whatever we believe in.
Well, and I'll say this quote because it's one of my favorite quotes. I live by it. I should have it memorized by now, but I don't.
I just think it's really interesting that you're comfortable. I think it's really cool, Dale. I want to say that you're comfortable choosing to be an atheist when so many people look at it. Like, I think a lot of people choose religion just to fit in, right? I think a lot of people, we fantasize about being different, and we fantasize about being that celebrity or that person that's different and has a bunch of money and is famous, but then we don't want to actually take the actions to be different.
Well, I know people
and then they just choose to fit in. And I think a lot of people choose religion because it's the easy way.
Yeah.
Because they're living in fear and they don't have an answer, and they're fearing the unknown, and they just want to choose something that might solve their answer of not knowing, and then when they die they might go somewhere.
Well, I know people will sit there and look at me funny or look at me like, I'm evil, and that's fine. But that's their belief. I don't have to let that affect me in any way. But Christopher Hitchens says that this is his line about religion in general. that which can be asserted without evidence
Yeah, I love
can
this.
be dismissed without evidence.
Yeah, I love that.
So
one.
if
I love
you
that.
want to come to me and say there is a God and have no way of proving it, I can say there is no God with no way of proving it.
And then these people and their fucking bullshit of God experiences, right? Like, oh, I had a fucking...
their reality.
Sorry to say, man, but anyone can say that. Like, how you perceive a fucking... Like, if someone is in a near-death experience, yes. Like, how can they say that's God? Like, say someone's close to dying, and then they're like a little in and out of it, and they're not with it. Like, of course someone can... There's so many people I've heard say they had a God experience. It's just like...
Well, now we know a little bit about what happens when we die. We've got that chemical in the brainstem that's exuded out. What is it, DBT or whatever, like DMT?
Yeah,
You're tripping. Yeah, if you use DMT recreationally, and I've
seen people on it.
I haven't done it, but
they're a little out there.
They feel like they are having a connection with God.
I had a guy in Hawaii.
This naturally secretes itself in your brainstem when you die. So who's to say that when we see that bright light or life is being shown before our eyes, that it's not that DMT
speaking
affecting us in the brain? The more and more that goes by with research on it, we're starting to realize that that's the case. So there's lots of people who have died and come back and said they saw nothing.
I just think it's really interesting. Everyone always has their bullshit excuse why they believe in religion. And ultimately, I just think it's a cop-out, right? I just think it's people that are fearful, that lack like, they lack confidence in not being in control, and they lack, like, comfort in not knowing what's going to happen. I think part of life is not having control of the unknown, and part of it is just understanding that and then adapting with it. And like, I don't trip out over not knowing what happens after I die.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah,
to me personally, I mean, I get where you're going with it, but it's okay to me if you want to feel that way and believe that way. I'm not going to sit here and knock you for it. If that's why you want to believe it, it gives you comfort, fine. But remember, I have the right to be the opposite.
Everyone has the right to believe what they want.
I have the right to say that I think that is hogwash, that's bullshit, and not believe you. Again, we talk about stories being fictional, correct? And it all comes down to whether or not we put belief in that fictional story, correct?
Yep.
So if I don't put any belief in what you're telling me because I don't buy it, to me, it's not reality to me, and I have the right to disagree with it.
And I think what you just said is the fact, what Christopher Reeve said is the great example, and that's why I don't. If there's no qualitative or quantitative evidence, sorry folks.
Yeah, Christopher Hitchens.
Christopher Hitchens, sorry. If everything that you base what you say on is based off a book written by people from hundreds of thousands of years ago, sorry, I just have a hard time without any qualitative and quantitative evidence.
And you can't honestly tell me that back in those days that they were at an educated level and sophistication level that today, if that book was written, it would be written in a completely different way.
And here's the interesting point, is that me and you talk about, Dells.
Why are we living in the dark ages?
Exactly. Like,
in prehistoric
that's
times.
That's my favorite point about all this, is that why can't we evolve? Like, look how far along we've come in so many ways, but then we still...
We want to hold on to the old shit.
The old shit. We want to blow each other up and believe in religion. Like, that is the most caveman-like ways of operating since back in the day. It was the I kill you so I get to live concept, and I'm bigger and better and stronger. And then it was, I don't know what's happening with my life in the future, so I believe in this. Yeah. I just think that's a great point, though. I think there's so many things that we talk about that are really crucial. And to me, I don't think this ever gets talked about enough. And I think it's really cool that you're doing that, because ultimately, folks, start auditing what you trust, why you trust it, and where you're putting your confidence and where you're putting your beliefs.
And not the Scientology.
And don't just let your exactly. And don't just let your parents choose for you, people. Choose for yourself. We all have our own beliefs. We all grow under our own shoes and our own personalities and beliefs.
Explore.
And don't let the people around you keep you from doing that.
Correct. So I'm going to finish this off with what I got to say here real quick. And then we'll go ahead and have you close it and we'll move on. But when it comes to life and when it comes to me living out here, I grew up in fear when I was in church and in religion. I don't live in fear anymore.
That's awesome.
I am free of that. Do I have anxiety over certain things? Well, that's normal. But I don't fear what's going to happen to me when it comes to death. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. I'm hoping, anxiety-wise, that it's an easy death.
But death is guaranteed.
But it's guaranteed. It's
no
going to
reason
be a
to fear.
guarantee. There's no way I can get around it, and I'm not getting any younger here. I'm almost at 45 now.
Me either, brother.
So that part of it is, when it's time to go, it's time to go.
We all have it.
Okay, so I'm not going to fear that. I'm going to take each day that I am alive, and I'm going to live it to the fullest to enjoy the life that I have each day, in the relationships and the love that I can have in my life each day. Point blank.
I think that's a great way of looking at life, man. I think that's a great way of looking at it, because to me, I think that's a great point. Death is one of the most irrational fears that exist, because listen, folks, Del just said it. It's in the books. We all have that day coming. It's just a matter of when it comes. So we might as well live life to the fullest in between then.
Why are you wasting time?
I always think about the dash, Del, in between the birth date and the date of death. Like, how much did you live? So
and that's just it. Abraham Lincoln, you don't remember his birthday. You don't remember the day he died, what that date was. But damn it, you remember what he did in between.
Exactly. So I think it's a great point, Del. I think it's really cool that you always talk about all these really cool concepts and ideas and push the dialogue forward on it, because I agree. I think it's time to evolve and move beyond elementary religious and theology-based living ideas and start to move forward and just evolutionize a little bit more. We I think as a species have come to a point, Del, where we can start to move beyond theology.
Well, I would hope so.
I would hope so.
I would hope so. I'd hope that eventually we would become wiser and more open-minded to be able to have healthy dialogue with this stuff. We are a more intelligent species now compared to 2,000 years ago.
And let's face it, with theology, we'll never have global unity with it.
No.
It's not really possible.
There's always going to be, either side, there's going to be someone who disagrees.
So until we get over that, if you think about it, it's really cool that Del leans into this so much, because it is one of our biggest barriers to unity as a species. It is theology. So I think that's really cool. I think it's great content and great dialogue and great perspective to bring forward to the people, Del.
Well, thanks everybody for watching us in this little live feed, and also this podcast that I'm going to be eventually putting out there for everybody. I'm the Recovery Atheist. You can find me on the YouTube channel, The Recovery Atheist, with my podcast as well on Spotify. My line is now, if you're on the go, take me with you.
It's not right, folks. It's not wrong. It's our perspective.
Peace out, everybody.